Hello and welcome back to OptimizEvony. Today we're going to be talking about the best free gear for a ground general. And so when I say free gear, I mean the Academy gear and also the Aries gear. I'm not going to be talking about any of the Civ gear. You can see I do have Civ gear here, but I'm actually going to be taking it off and showing you how my ground general was suited up before any of that Civ gear came into play. And if you don't have any of the Civ gear, you can also gear your general in this way to optimize. So first of all, let's take off this gear and let's put on the right gear for a free-to-play player that does not have any of this gear. Alright, so let's go through what I have, and then we can talk about any other options that you have for your ground general. Switching out, an Ares piece or an Archae piece for however you want to gear your general. But this is the best way that I've found for gearing the ground general. You'll have two Academy gear for the all troops attack plus 10%, and you're really just trying to maximize those set attributes. So, and then there's 4 of the Ares gear, which gives you 15% attacking troops attack, and then this is less important. The 4-piece set, the ground and mounted troop attack and defense on monsters. So this helps if you're trying to run bosses with your ground general, but in general it's better to use mounts for ground or for bosses. And so unless you're really low on troops, on mount troops, and you want to run bosses with your ground gen, I would say this is not super important. So if you can't meet that 4 of 6 set, that's fine. But yeah, let's start talking about the pieces. So first of all, I did the Aries Sword, which gives you ground troop attack plus 45, and then also gives enemy mounted troop attack debuff of 40%. Those are basically the 2 main important pieces. Yeah, it also gives an in-city ground troop defense buff here if you needed to switch it out onto your wall for whatever reason. So that's okay too. And then of course refining all of this for a ground troop attack. We'll talk about refining in a little bit, but in general, for your specific generals, like your ground general, your mount general, your archer general, your siege general, you're going to want to refine everything for that one troop type that you're targeting. So in this case, ground. So all of these pieces will be refined to ground. So then for chest, I go the Fearless Aries armor. This gives you ground troop defense and ground troop HP. And then one of the reasons why I like this one is it gives you enemy ranged troop attack and enemy siege machine attack debuffs here. And so when you're using ground troops, you're typically targeting a player that does not have a lot of mount troops and doesn't have a lot of ground troops left. And so the main things that you're going to be killing are going to be ranged troops and siege troops. And so debuffing both of those attacks is gonna work out nicely for you. Then the next piece, the boots, are the Courageous Academy boots, which give you again really only one important thing here for ground troop, which is the ground troop defense, and then again siege machine attack debuff and mount troop attack debuff. So this will give you a little bit more debuff there. Probably won't make too much of a difference If there are some mount troops, you do want to definitely debuff those, because those are going to be what's going to be killing your ground troop march as well. For the helmet, we're going with the Courageous Ares helmet, which is basically the only option for ground here. You get ground troop attack, ground troop HP, and then in-city ground troop defense. Again, not super important unless you're trying to put it on your wall. But yeah, those first two are great, and especially ground troop attack. Ground troop attack is a little bit hard to get without doing a whole bunch of research in the military academy and stuff like that. It's not something that's on a lot of the gear until you get to some Civ gear. And then for the leg armor, we're going with the Fearless Ares leg armor, which gives you ground troop HP, and then mounted ground troop defense. Yeah, again, pretty standard. This is the best piece for your leg armor. And then for ring, you'll be going the Fearless Ares ring, which gives you ground troop defense buff, and again, the enemy mounted troop attack. If there's any mounts left there, you'll want to debuff that as much as possible. And then a big one here is the march size capacity. So plus 12%, that's gonna help, because when you're trying to do ground clears, you want to send as many ground as possible to be able to get through any remaining ground or mount layers that the person has, to be able to make a clean clear of all their troops. So that's essentially how I have it set up for a free-to-play player. But I will show you a couple different options that you do have. So for boots, I don't have it out right now. So basically, I would say there's options that you have for any of these left three items. So the sword, the chest piece, and the boots, you can switch, mix and match on. But the one thing that I would definitely guarantee that you have is you want to make sure that you have these set bonuses. So you want to at least have 2 of each, so that you have both the just general troop attack and then the attacking troop attack set bonuses here. But let's find out. Let's look at some of the other options that you can do. So let's start with the sword. So the other sword that you can do is the Aries Sword. So this will give you, again, the same ground troop attack, again, ground troop defense. Really the only difference here is that it's going to give you enemy mounted troop HP debuff, instead of the Archae Sword, which instead of the ground mount troop HP, it gives you mount troop attack. So really, not too big of a deal there. I myself like it for being able to have the 2 set, and it's also cheaper to craft, because you don't need to waste your BOC badges or anything like that, or your materials for upgrading from the dragon gear. Instead of that, you can just use this Archae sword instead. So then let's look at the other options that you have. So for the chest piece, you can also use the Fearless Archae armor, which again has the same ground troop defense and ground troop HP once it's fully starred out, and then has enemy mount troop defense debuff. The one reason why I prefer to have the Ares here is because these 2 debuffs are going to be the siege and archer attack, which is going to be kind of nice when you're doing those big clears. The other reason you might not be able to do the fearless Aries armor is that the requirements here are Wonder 1. So if you don't have Wonder level 1, you're not going to be able to do that. And you're going to have to use that Archae armor instead. So not too big of a difference again, but you can. I prefer this Fearless Aries armor, but you can use the Archae armor that I just showed as well. And then the last thing is the boots. So for the boots, you can again choose an Aries boot, and this requires Dragon Master, which requires you to have a dragon at a certain power. But yeah, that one's a lot easier to get, so I expect that most people will have that. This basically has the same ground troop defense, and really, none of these things are very important, unless you're putting it on your wall gen. But I would much prefer the debuff that the Archae gear gives, and so you can use these gear again, but I much prefer the Archae gear for the boots. So yeah, that's really the gear that you would put on your ground gen if you're a free-to-play player. And then if you have some of that civ gear, then you can start to switch out some of those things, again trying to preserve the set bonuses as long as possible, and really only switching them out when they make sense and they've been refined well enough. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.